in the world, but Zest has been one of the people that's been able to kind of throw him off a little bit. And yeah, I'm super looking forward to it. Anyhow, getting right into the game, spawning over in the top left-hand side of Lightshade, it is Zest.
And that, of course, means that in the bottom right side of Lightshade, we're looking at the main base of the reigning defending world champion of StarCraft 2, representing Clash. This is Reynor.
And Kev, I've got to ask you, because some of those vetoes looked a bit weird for me. It was Zest vetoing Oxide, which, yeah, that's all right, and Blackburn as well, but just leave it in Beckett and what have you. Like, how did you feel about that one as a Protoss?
That is indeed a little bit surprising, Ben, but I think that Zest has just played Oxide a few too many times now, and I think he's just sick and tired of losing to Queens and Roaches. I think those builds are very powerful on Oxide, and Zest is clearly very fond of going double Stargate Void Ray, and Reynor likes to punish that as early as he can. Now, I gotta say, one game, I think, when he played against Trap during the TSL very recently, I actually think Reynor got a little bit lucky because he hit a timing that was very late, and Disruptors were already out, and that's kind of the wombo combo that Protoss players look for. Void Rays and Disruptors to deal with Queens and Roaches. Reynor even said it in the interviews, like, yeah, I got a little bit lucky, probably shouldn't have won that one, but it's the little things you don't care about. Obviously, he was a bit bummed out about the fact that he did not manage to win TSL 7 because he's really feeling that he's in phenomenal shape. He's been working incredibly hard over the last few weeks. After Katowice, the man took a little break and he's like, it's all right, you know, let's enjoy the victory. Let's slowly but steady get back to full strength. Was still the runner-up of the DreamHack StarCraft 2 season Europe finals, I guess, so to speak. Lost in the grand finals against Clem, but that just lit a fire under his butt. He's like, all right, now I want to get truly back on top. And this is the tournament that was really set out to win for quite some time. Let's see what Reynor is made of.
Yeah, he had a small lull, but he's back and seemingly just as good as he once was. This game did start off with Zest going for a low ground gateway and a very early hatchery block, but didn't deter Reynor at all. He took the more forward third base. You might be like, hey, isn't that a bit risky, expanding towards the Protoss as opposed to the other one? But it also puts fear into the Protoss. That creep spread already starts closer to you, makes Queen Walks a little bit more viable, and it didn't throw Reynor off one little bit. And a Stargate, that is the weapon of choice for Zest.
Yeah, I don't think that's too surprising. I'd like to see Zest switch it up once in this series and just go for an early Twilight immediately. Especially because Trap, if we go back to the TSL finals, found most success with just opening up straight, one gate, fast expand with an early Twilight Council, go for 3 gate Resonating Glaives and go up to 3 bases. And that's actually the build that just found the most success against Reynor. It's almost like Reynor didn't really want to go all in too early on, but then started falling behind against the strong economy that Protoss players could work with. But it seems like Zest doesn't want to deter too much from what he knows best. And then it's opening up with a lot of Void Rays. And I'd be very shocked not to see a second Stargate go down a little bit later.
I mean, Zest, he is kind of capable of a lot of things, right? I know that Todd talked about how he's good with the Stalkers and what have you. I've always known him for being very, very gung-ho once he starts, especially with Zealots and what have you. But yeah, second gateway goes down just to formulate this wall. The Overlord sees that there's no Stalker, wants to get a scout off because, well, now he's got confirmation on what he's up against, and that's a big deal for Reynor, getting to know what he's up against here.
Yeah, I don't think this is too shocking. I'm not sure if he caught a peek on that Stargate, so he could have seen it was an Oracle follow-up, because that is obviously something that you do want to be aware of. Maybe you could have seen that if he really zooms in on it, lowers the camera a little bit. Zest is going to expand at the triangle location as well. That does mean that this could be a bit more difficult to defend against Queens and Roaches if Reynor decides to go for that. Wouldn't be the first time. Then again, Zero also tried a similar build against Zest, and he actually held it convincingly. But I think that was a game where the Zerg took quite some damage early on. And I don't think Reynor is planning on taking any early damage, as he can already put his Queens in the right position and to deal with the Void Ray. Here comes the Oracle. Is going to go for a Stasis Trap. Seems like it's not going to get more than a single, maybe Zergling even. Yeah, there you go.
Nicely handled by Reynor, not getting anything done, but you were right, Kevin. Stargate starts, second Stargate that is, and +1 before that even went up as well. Wow. This Void Ray is getting some damage done. I mean, this already is a decent start for Zest, and we've got to mention that third went up before the third or fourth gas as well, so a very, very greedy build by Zest, and he's looking for this game to go on for at least a little bit.
Yep. I've actually seen Zest legitimately have games on Lightshade where he did not lose a single unit against Protoss 9-10 minutes in. Or excuse me, against
Zerg, yeah.
Yeah, he's completely okay with just flying around with a couple of Stargate units, keep cranking out those probes for as long as he can, and get up to a really powerful comp of a couple of Immortals, a couple of Archons, and a lot of Void Rays with +1, and then just start fighting around the 9 or 10 minute mark. I am not sure if Reynor want to give him that luxury and that much comfort. You can see Reynor is looking for a probe kill. He's going to get the first probe here with his Zerglings. It ain't much, but it's honest work.
It's good SimCity by Zest as well, and now Reynor gets to see how early that third was and if it's fully functioning and stuff. And this Void Ray count, has he seen any extra? Oh, doesn't want to take any full damage there, but that Forge as well that went down, do you think that's purely for cannons to make sure that he doesn't die to anything, or do you think there might be some switch later on?
No, I think there is a good chance that he's going to get +1 and heading towards a ground comp, because Zest is not the guy to now drop a fleet beacon and another Stargate. Reynor is firing up Roaches, by the way. He's at 56 drones. He's firing up the extra Roaches, so we are going to see one of these Queen Roach attacks. And now Zest indeed wants to use that Forge for as many cannons as possible. And I wonder if Reynor is always going to take the fight here, as it's relatively wide open. But it can be a bit tricky. Sometimes I wonder if there's potential for Zerg players to just kind of go up the ramp a bit further towards the left and try to strike the natural. But this is kind of it, man. This is really what it all comes down to. Because if this attack is a success, well, then Zest is in a lot of trouble. But if Reynor doesn't get the damage done that he's looking for, if he cannot take out the probes in the static defenses, and if he loses all the queens against the Void Rays, then Reynor is in a lot of trouble.
I mean, this is a real scary army, right? +1 has finished for the Void, so they're better than ever. But Reynor has to do something with this, and nice focus fire on the Voids. They obviously, or rather the Roaches, they deal a lot of extra damage to those units.
Reynor's doing a really good job though, keeping that Ravager alive for as long as possible, but the battery overcharge is putting in so much healing. Zest is not losing a single unit, while Reynor is actually losing a lot of units. This is one of the better battery overcharges I have seen in a long time. Zest lost nothing there, and he's already killed so much. The Reynor's kind of blocking his own Roaches in the back. You see that? All the Queens on the left side were blocking these units from making an appearance, and I actually think this is just one hell of a phenomenal hold for Zest. He's not totally there yet, but this has to be a hold. With the amount of healing that battery overcharge did, how can this ever fill?
And look at the supply. Zest is way ahead with a better army. Look how many cannons he has in the top as well. He was more than ready for this, and Reynor's push, that failed about as hard as it could. What is the resources lost tab after that?
But it says lose. He lost one probe. Maybe that was earlier actually against the Lynx. He lost a cannon and 3 adepts. Yeah, this is flawless. An absolutely stunning hold here by Zest. And I do think Reynor made a mistake there. If you see battery overcharge is activated, either you disengage or you make sure you have enough burst damage to gun down those cannons at once. But he was doing damage over time, and if you do damage over time, that's where battery overcharge shines the most. And yeah, holds don't get much cleaner and better than that.
Reynor's in a lot of trouble now. Like, he is remaking a lot of queens because he has to be scared about this air count. And it's got to be mentioned as well, the lair only just finished as that push was happening. What? Do you feel that it was just the blocking of the queens that was problematic, or not having enough Ravagers and stuff to stop the Voids from dealing damage? By the way, 10 gateways at once. Jeez Louise.
I do think that Reynor indeed blocked his own units a lot, but once more, for me, the key moment is battery overcharge. Is it a good battery overcharge or is it a bad one? This one was phenomenal. It was healing both cannons all the time while the Zerglings were going down. And in between, battery overcharge is amazing. It heals the Void Rays up too. So
Absolutely.
all these queens are doing damage over time, and that damage gets nullified immediately. I mean, you don't have access to the numbers of how much health did the battery overcharge heal there, but I guarantee you that's in the thousands.
I was just thinking the same. I wish we had the number for how much it actually held or healed this whole game, because that was phenomenal. Great Implore, great SimCity by Zest, and now he's in a really, really good situation. Charge is coming up. +1 is done on the ground weapons as well. And Reynor, he's not able to get anything done. I mean, that third base of Zest, no way can you do a run-by on that at any point. Zest only has to worry about his natural, and so far he's just powering on ahead.
Yep. Obviously, with all the gateways finishing up, I feel like this is kind of the moment where Zest is going to get ready to march to the other side of the map. Now, Reynor is capable of making magic happen with just a buttload of Roaches and Ravagers. He's incredibly good in buying time, kiting armies, especially on creep, while still maybe being annoying with a couple of Zerglings. I don't think we're going to get a cancel there. That Nexus had a little too much HP, and the army of Zest was a bit too close. Reynor needs to land phenomenal corrosive balance, and basically he needs to kite. Does find an Archon with Zerglings. That's obviously a lovely start to a potential hold, but as impressive as the hold was from Zest, this one would be even more impressive because Reynor just doesn't have an army that's as good as the army of Zest.
Oh, that's a lot of bios. The Void Rays do have to dodge constantly. The bios start off really good. These Queens, the transfusions as well. Reynor's doing this about as good as he can.
Yep, the Void Rays actually not fighting a lot. Do you see that? They're just flying around trying to avoid a corrosive ball. The Immortals are still going strong though in the back line, but now they're a little bit exposed. Can the Zealots keep the Immortals safe? It seems like the answer is yes, barely, because 2 Immortals were quite low to falling. Reynor's going to try to get lucky with a couple of corrosives, but Zest has no mercy. He's going in real deep. He's getting on top of the defensive units of Reynor, and I don't think there is a stopping this Protoss army anymore.
Oh, look at that warping as well. He's trying to stop it with the corrosive files, but a little bit too late. But I think the damage has been done, and GG. Zest takes the first game.
Wow. It's funny because I've seen Zest have a very, very similar game to Sero, where Sero went for a similar strategy, and Sero did lose a few more drones earlier on than Reynor did, even though Reynor took a bit of damage against the Void Ray. But I don't think that is what was catastrophic. I don't think like, oh, you lose those 4 drones, you can't make the Queen Roach Ravager attack work anymore. I think it's still possible. But yeah, the execution needs to be on point. And if anything, it was just the defense of Zest that was on point. And I mean, I'm a biased Protoss, so I'm always like, when is he going to drop the battery overcharge? That's what we get excited over, guys. We don't have the flashy micro that you Terran nerds have. Because you want to make sure you don't use it too early, but you also can't use it too late. Because if you then activate it and Ravagers are in range, and you activate battery overcharge, corrosive ball goes down, and that's it, you're like, ooh, maybe you should have looked for a different moment. This was a absolutely perfect battery overcharge, and he got so much out of it.
I mean, you can't say much more than that. Like, we're going to look at it again. I think all the Queens got on the left side, so then the Ravagers couldn't get on the left and get down that battery. And we see this, look, those Ravagers have to go into a lot of cannons. There's lots of focus fire. Look, they're all blocked behind these Queens.
Yep.
That was a huge, huge blunder by Reynor, but it's got to be said, Zest's build was really damn good, and he respected this push. He dealt with it beautifully. Just great play by Zest all around.
I like how safe his battery is, yet
blockage.
It is in range to heal both cannons. Like, you would think that that bottom cannon was a bit out of range, but battery overcharge have quite a bit of range. Here, obviously, Reynor tried to make magic happen, but his army was not as good as the army of Zest. There was a split moment where I almost believed, because those 3 Immortals, they felt a bit naked, and the Void Rays were trying to fly around, avoid those corrosive balls, avoid the Queens, but then that clutch Zealot Warpin came in, the 3 Immortals survived, and then the Zealots and Immortals just push everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was really smart usage of the bios, right? Like, not just for damage, but to try and make the Void Rays not be able to deal damage. I did like the end moves then with the Void Rays, like stutter stepping on top of the army. And that way, like, Voids can still deal quite a lot of damage with that maneuver. But I mean, the game was kind of over at that point. But yeah, I think as far as Lightshade goes, would you say that's Zerg favored in this matchup?
According to the Protoss pros, it absolutely is.
Wow, I mean, that's a great start for Zest then. Yep. And now it's going down to Jagannatha. Oh, that could be a longer one, actually.
Used to be like a very good Protoss map, but then certain Zerg pushes became quite popular, and it's like, you know what, maybe it's not as good as we thought at first. I actually think that Zest is just going to do the same thing, because I've seen countless of games where Zest is being pushed by Roaches, Queens, Ravagers, and even recently, apparently, he defended an all-in without losing a single unit. There must have been one hell of a battery overcharge too. I didn't see the game, but I heard it took place. Yeah, I wonder, maybe Reynor is going to switch it up. Reynor is not afraid of the late game. I think he actually kind of likes playing very late game ZVP, even though he's never that vocal about it, saying that he likes it. But I do think he doesn't mind, and I think he's very good at controlling those multiple spellcasters.
I think that's one of the things about Reynor. He can do it all, right? Like, I've never felt that he's super... There was one time that I felt his caster usage wasn't the best with his Infestors, but he absolutely came on in the next few months and just showed that he's really damn good. Anyhow, getting into Jagannatha, spawning in the bottom left, playing for team Dragon Phoenix Gaming, it is Zest.
And in the top right side of this beautiful map, we're looking at the main base of our Italian Zerg, celebrating his 19th birthday today. This is Reynor. I
really liked that build of Zest. Like the fact that the 3rd and 4th gas were delayed for as long as they was. Getting that 3rd up as quickly and having that big amount of minerals to spend, the early forge as well for the cannons. It was just all very cleanly timed. Even the +1 on the Void Rays, literally coming online as the queen push hit. It's a very well thought out build by Zest.
Yep. I feel like Zest has just looked at that scenario and he's confident that he can hold, that he can defend. The funny thing is, I think there are a lot of Zergs out there, especially the high-level Zergs, that are like, no, you can actually still bust that. Especially on Light Shade with that positioning, when they take that third base, we can bust that. But yeah, it's often a dance between, you know, when do you go for it with the queens, when is battery overcharge activated, are the Ravages in range to gun down buildings? Because dealing damage over time is not good enough, since battery overcharge is incredibly good. I think everyone is pretty much aware of that at this point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're on a different map altogether, and Reynor, instead of taking the more forward triangular base, he did go for the further back third, if you will, as his natural here, given that there was a hatchery block again by Zest. But so far, nothing abnormal here by either player.
I do want to point out, in case you guys just joined, that of course this tournament has 4 groups, and we are playing out the groups in the GSL format, as we call it. So the winner of this best of 3 moves on to play against Maru in the winner bracket match. The loser of this best of 3 plays against Probe. This format has ups and downs over the traditional round robin. This is one of these groups where I do feel that every match matters, because going into the lower bracket, knowing that your tournament life will be on the line against either Reynor, Zest or Maru, for any of them, that's just very unpleasant. So if you can get the job done through the upper bracket, I really think it takes a lot of pressure off your shoulders, and of course you get slightly better seeding going into the playoffs.
It's also a tricky group in the sense that if you are Zest, and let's say you win here going up against Maru, you still have to beat the other 2 best players in the group to make it, right? Yeah. Which is, it's really damn difficult. Like, looking at these groups alone, they are all arguably the best of their race. I know there's a big argument for Trap being the best Protoss in the world, but Zest absolutely has had his moments. And yeah, this game he is opening up the Stargate behind it all. It looks like it will be the exact same scenario between both these players. But yeah, dropping into that loser bracket and then it all being on the line, you either go up against Zest again as Reynor or Maru, like, that'd be so rough potentially.
Last game it was Void Ray into single Oracle. Into more Void Rays. That is something that Zest is very fond of. We'll see if he decides to take that route again. It was kind of funny how I do think Reynor dropped the ball a little bit, because one Void Ray should obviously not be able to kill 3 or 4 drones in the natural. It's almost like he was a bit too busy dealing with the stasis trap, and because he was busy dealing with the stasis trap, the queens were a bit AFK on the left side, and that is what allowed the Void Ray to deal some damage. Reynor is making a lot of Zerglings here. That is a few more Zerglings than I normally see from him. What is this all about? It seems like he's going to try to punish Zest his third Nexus.
Can you do it, though? I mean, this third comes down so damn fast. And, I mean, they're on the other side of the map. He's going to have to get there very quickly if he wants to stop this, especially depending on where the Oracle goes with this. Oh, kept the Void Ray at home as well.
Yeah, where are those 2 adepts? Are they still in the natural? Yep, one adept at least is. I mean, it's a decent amount of links, but it's just not enough links to actually get a cancel there. Could have been just like for safety to make sure that you can deal with 2 adepts if Zest gets a little bit adventurous and shades them in from weird angles. Ooh, Zest is so adventurous with his oracles. He pretty much always does this. It's insane. That was a lot of damage for a single drone. Most pros will say that that is not something you want to sign off as a Protoss player.
You know the crazy part about that? He was running into the 3 queens already, and he's like, pulsar beam, start shooting. I'd have been out of there in a flash. The Roach Warren does start. It's around the same time as the game before. But yeah, identical build from Zest, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Kev.
I do feel that Reynor made like just a few more links than you normally see out of Zerg players.
I think quite a few more, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like he didn't get anything out of it, of course. Was trying to get lucky, trying to find a probe maybe that was going up to 3 bases, but it was a split second too late, and because the Void Ray was at home. These links, I don't want to say they were useless, but they haven't accomplished a whole lot yet. These are all little things that do really add up in this level.
Twilight Council starting pretty darn early this game as well. The Forge starts up, meaning he can make cannons, get that +1 upgrade as well if he wants to. Robo. This just seems like a really nice all-round build for Zest. And I know he's ahead in workers right now. That is kind of part and parcel with the earlier lings that Reynor made. But so far, I feel very good about Zest's position in this game.
I'm really curious to see where Reynor is going to take it. Because Reynor is still making queens. Now, that could just be for safety, to make sure that he can go up to 4 bases. And he doesn't get stuck on 3 because the Voiders are being annoying. Obviously, you won't take any damage from the Oracle either, but this also means that Reynor is not heading into like a super quick transition by the looks of it. We didn't see an Infestation Pit go down yet. We didn't see a Hydra then go down.
Oh, he lost the Oracle there?
Yep.
Oh, that's actually a big deal because Reynor's already been trying to sell this idea that he's going to move across the map. You do see a lot of static defense being made by Zest, which it will be useful later on. But I think Zest is now under the impression that an attack's coming.
Do you think Reynor is going to drop a Spire?
It'd be risky against double Stargate, right?
I do think it is. Whoa, Roach Pit is very late. Seems like he kind of forgot about that. I feel like he could have had that a bit sooner. Zest, for a split second, is like, am I getting all int? And then he's like, nope, I don't believe it. I don't think I am. So I'm going to cancel these static defenses. And he's just whopping in 8 gateways at once. I just want to see what Reynor is going to build. I have the feeling he wants to go for a Spire. So make it seem like there is a big Roach Queen attack and then followed up with Muras. But it is really risky because if it gets scouted, of course the Oracle went down, so scouting is a bit harder. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen, guys. I'm just starting to get a Spire feeling, but I think you're playing a dangerous game at that point.
Yeah, he's had the gas to make a choice, but when I'm looking at this, it's like, what if he was to make a ground army, what would it be? Because there's already double Robo on the map, right? There's going to be a lot of Zealots, Archons available. Oh, these Queens get a nice little snipe here.
So many Queens. Maybe Reynor just wants to go ultra late game and drop an Infestation Pit, go up to Hive. We've seen Dark go for 7-minute Hives a couple of times. It is 12 Queens at this point. He's heading into 14. He's kind of maxing out on Queen Roach. Stefano would be proud.
He certainly would. And actually, when I think about it, he was getting a lot done in that hold on Lightshade despite being so far behind. I like how he did use his Roach Ravager. Maybe he looked at that situation and was just like, hey, considering how bad it went earlier, that was not bad for me.
So this is actually very similar to what he did against Trap. So Reynor, the Warp Prism is actually flying in forward, but Zest does get on top of this immediately. Where are the Roaches when you need them the most? These Queens were a little bit too exposed, and I feel like this is really awkward because they both want to attack each other. Reynor wants to attack Zest, and Zest is like, hey, what are you doing here, man? I want to attack you. It's more Queens on the way. Prismatic Alignment being activated for a split second there. Korosabao is connecting with these Void Rays though. And this is getting honestly quite wild. Now Reynor's build, I feel like is supposed to work against this because Zest does not have quick access to Disruptors. Disruptors would be the absolute hard counter to this. There are no Disruptors. So if it ever should work, this is the moment where it will work. And if you look at that army supply, you're like, whoa, my goodness, maybe Zest is in a bit of trouble.
I think he might well be. All that static defense got cancelled from earlier. Where is he warping things in here? He's got not a lot of minerals to spend, which is maybe the first time ever for Zest, but this is a lot of Ravagers, a lot of Queens at his door. Taken out. Oh, he's actually doing a Zealot run-by in the meantime as well, just trying to put pressure on Reynor on the other side.
Yeah, but Reynor, obviously, Roaches are very good defensively in dealing with these Zealot run-bys. Reynor needs to make sure that he doesn't lose his Queens. That's the most important thing, because if the Queens go down, then the Void Rays can clean up the rest. Reynor is obviously aware of that. Zest is kind of going for the Queens, and the Archons are getting some good shots off. Korosabao does connect with the Void Rays.
Oh, look at all these juicy Ravagers with the Zealots. He's trying to get damage done here. The Archons are standing pretty damn strong, but he's not fighting with shield batteries. They're all doomed to die here.
Oh, Korosabao does take out a couple of Void Rays, and that's massive there because it was starting to look a little bit dire as Reynor was almost running out of anti-air. Zest building the Robo Bay at the third is a bit painful. He's using battery overcharge now to keep this Robo alive. Can the Robo allow the Disruptor to pop? The answer is no, and I think that is going to do it here. It was just Queens, Roaches, and Ravagers, but an absolute crap ton of them. And that is going to do it. Reynor will tie up the series. Whew, that was quite something with Zest running into Reynor, attacking him in the center of the map. It's like, hey, wait, what? Like, that's my plan. What are you doing here?
I think that started off about as bad as it could for Reynor, right?
Yeah.
Like, losing 5-6 Queens like that, but the amount of units that he actually had, and one weakness of this amount of Void Rays is the fact that they are to be made to move around a lot. So as long as they're moving around, which is Reynor's goal here, they're not dealing damage. And Zest, you saw, he tried to get something done on the other side of the map, but Reynor, he had his plan. It seemed right from the get-go, kind of forced Zest. As soon as he killed the Oracle, he kind of pounced on the idea that I'm going to fake out an all-in, going to make Zest panic a little bit. But yeah, I think a lot of things went very well for Reynor this game, but also smart play by him.
Like at this point, I really didn't hate it that much for Zest.
Me neither.
I was like, well, there is maybe a chance, but then eventually the Zealots didn't get too much done. Zest decided to set it up almost immediately. I thought this was kind of smart too, just for a split second. He activated Prismatic Alignment, and here I was like, uh-oh, he's getting on top of the queens, and once more, if Reynor loses all the queens here, then the Ravages are not going to be able to win the game for you. But these final Corrosive Balls taking out 2 Void Rays there, I think that made a big difference, because 5 Void Rays or 3 Void Rays, it's not quite the same ball game.
No, to say how much he respected the push on the first map, the fact that this one happened and it was just like, I didn't see any shield batteries in that fight, right? Or the cannons. I know we kind of got tricked out a little bit earlier, and that can make you think, and I know it's always worrisome because it's like, okay, is it static defense or do I get Zealots? Because I really want to attack you. It just felt like the amount of respect for the build, maybe thought it was going to go better than it did, but it felt like it was okay, another Robo, get the Robo Bay. Like, I think Reynor did a really good job of selling something that never happened, really.
Yep. But he's obviously playing a dangerous game too. Now, it's a bit easier when you pick off the Oracle, because if the Pros player loses the Oracle, it becomes a bit harder to really figure out what's happening in the main base. Is there a Spire to worry about? Is there a Hive to worry about? Is this just going to be a long game? Are you going to turtle? Can I attack you? And instead, Reynor just hits a lot later, but with even more Queens, even more Ravagers. It is a very good build if your opponent does not pick up on it, because I think Reynor wants to face exactly what Zest was doing, and that is the transition into like the 10 gateways and the Archons and the Zealots. But if Zest would have immediately built a Robo Bay, then there is a chance that the Pros player already has 2 or 3 Disruptors and try splitting your Queens off creep against Disruptors. Yeah,
and like when you're the one being made to move as opposed to making your opponent move, it means none of your units are dealing damage, and then you're just getting flailed by mass Zealots, the Archons, the Void Rays. It can be a world of trouble.
Now, the funny thing is that we were obviously memeing already. It's like, oh, best of 3, back at Industries, we're never going to see it. Well, second best of 3 of the tournament, we are going to see back at Industries. Why? Well, I guess Zest just hates the other maps a little bit more, and I think Reynor feels all right on this map. But just because it's very small doesn't mean it's great for Zerg. Because at first you see this, you're like, oh, 12 pool. And then it's like, actually 12 pool is not all that good. If the Protoss player just holds the 12 pool the way they should, then they have very early access to Adepts. And you don't even need a Warp Prism, or you don't even need a Gateway or a Pylon on the other side of the map. You can just warp in your Adepts at home, and things can spiral out of control real quick. I actually think that Reynor is just going to go for a 17 pool or a 16 pool into a hatchery. I don't think he's going to go hatch first, and I don't think he's going to go 12 pool.
Is this some insider information you have, or?
No, that's just based on all the games I've seen of Reynor.
Okay.
I know that Reynor did whine to me about 12 pool not being good on this map, but that's a while ago.
Small insider info. Anyhow, getting into the final map of this series. Spawning over in the top right-hand side, he is the Katowice champion. It is Reynor.
In the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of our Korean Protoss player. He is representing Dragon Phoenix Gaming. This man just can't stop playing in tournaments lately. It's Zest.
There's another thing as well, like even though this map is the shortest we've pretty much ever had, especially if you include those speed zones, it helps Queens march across very, very quickly. Those gaps, those chokes you have to go through. I remember one time watching Reynor. Is it a hidden drone?
He's actually going hedge first. Gonna get it 5 minerals? No, that's so close.
That's pretty huge as well. Yeah. Like that hatchery is actually significantly delayed now, wherever it wants to go. And I mean, that's already a little unfortunate. Zest is probably going to be feeling quite good about that one.
That's actually sick, because Reynor faked it, and obviously if Zest doesn't see anything, he needs to go into the main base, because if you are getting 12 put on Beckett, you want to be aware of that as early as possible. So the pro peeked into the main base, and he turned around immediately. He's like, just in case you were hiding a drone there. And he was. I'd say a little advantage for Zest here.
Zest, he really is a Protoss with balls of steel, man. Like, whenever I see him play, he has his method of doing things, but it never looks like he thinks twice about a situation, right? He's very decisive. That's one thing you can always say about Zest. And he is going for, so far, a very similar safe opening. And this game, yeah, we talked about it, the chokes, it does make it a little bit easier to hold off these Queen Walks, depending on which path they do go. But I'm very interested in what Reynor's going to bring when it comes to Beckett Industries.
I think it's a lot about just making sure he doesn't take damage from Adepts. Reynor has been pretty vocal in interviews that he feels that the Korean players just use their Adepts in pretty wild ways, and they come in from angles that he didn't even know existed. Obviously, the more you face it, the more prepared you get for it. Yeah, everything that the Zerg can potentially do aggressively here can also get shut down really hard. I have the feeling that Reynor is just hoping he can read Zest correctly and then make the units that he feels like he needs to deal with, whatever Zest is going to throw at him.
Oh, Reynor gets a very quick scout off in this Stargate, though. This is significantly earlier than what he did the previous games. He usually just sits as Overlord on top of that gateway, sees the Adept count or the two Adepts and what have you, and here, he can make a lot of earlier reactions to this, actually.
You can probably even save that Scouting Overlord, and that's not a luxury Zerg players have too often.
Not at all, not at all.
I guess it also helps that Beckett is a very tiny map and the Overlord is just there immediately.
You use the speed zones, get back home, and it's like, woohoo! Made it, boys!
Would you go as far to say yes?
Probably. And yeah, when you were talking about Protosses, like talking about the Adepts that he finds problematic, that's very much a trap thing, I feel, when it comes to trap against Reynor. Very often the two Adepts will come, get 3 or so drones from a weird angle. We haven't seen that from Zest so far. He's been playing very defensive with his Adepts.
Yep. I think Reynor's almost maybe a little bit annoyed by that. It's like, hey man, I keep making all these links. I'm hoping to just catch them somewhere in the center of the map. Zest is indeed just only using them defensively. Has also not slipped up once. I mean, this is something we maybe expect from Protoss players at this level, but you'd be surprised how often that door of the natural is open for 12 links to run in. Zest has not made a single slip up yet in that regard in the entire best of 3.
Oh, this arrival this quickly.
The probe.
This is nice, because this was less links than the previous game, but they've already delayed that third base by a little bit, so Reynor can definitely look at this and be like, hey, this is going just a little bit better, and I won the previous game as well.
Making quite a few queens, but at this point that doesn't necessarily mean that Reynor wants to use his queens aggressively. Obviously did go for a queen-based attack with a lair versus Trap in the grand finals of TSL. Unfortunately, did not exactly run into what he was expecting to run into.
That's already a little bit of a better start here for Zest. Oh, I mean, stopping a lot of mining time and 2 drones gets out of there.
2 drones, I mean, we often talk about you don't want to take too much damage on your oracles, but for Zest, this is honestly a reasonable amount of damage. He's like, oh, well, it's way healthier than it normally is. That man is living on the edge, but to give kudos to Zest, he almost never loses the first oracle immediately. He plays with fire, but he pretty much always gets away with it, so it just seems like Zest doesn't care too much, and it seems like it's mostly for him just to get that initial tiny bit of economic damage, and he's like, you know what, from here on out, my oracle is just safe and sound. It's on patrol somewhere, it's gonna drop a stasis trap, a revelation, but I don't care that it doesn't have full HP, because I don't plan on killing any more drones anyway.
No, you're totally right. Reynor does get the scout on the second Stargate very quickly this game. But yeah, I love it, because the Oracle, he starts it off as I have to deal damage with this, then he utilizes it in a totally different way. Then it's his scout for the rest of the game, maybe getting a stasis off here and there. But it's very cool. It's obviously very clinical, because he's done the same build 3 times in a row now, so he obviously swears by this.
Reynor's economy definitely a bit better 5 minutes and 30 seconds into the game on this map than it was in the previous game, because in the previous game around this time he was actually still a couple drones behind. This game Reynor has been cruising and he's 8 or 9 workers ahead. 2 differences, of course, made less links and actually delayed the third base of Zest for a bit. And obviously means Zest wasn't able to build 3 probes at once. So little things working out a bit better for Reynor. I do think that if Reynor just once more tries to make queens and roaches and walk to the other side of the map and win the game, there really is a chance that Zest is actually going to switch it up. Doesn't transition into the Zealots, the Archons, and the Immortals, but actually transitions into a Robo Bay. I think Disruptors really are amazing against those builds.
It's got to be said, like, Reynor's creep spread is wild. It's already kind of knocking on the front door of Zest here. And Zest, he's got a decent amount of minerals here to spend. Loses the Oracle against a huge group, but he did get to scout the 4th base attempt of Reynor. And Reynor, 14 drones fired up here.
Yep, so Reynor is actually just comfortable going into Hive this game. That's kind of funny, right? Ooh, and Zest is going for the quick hit Robobay this game. You see that? It's almost like Reynor is expecting Zest to indeed make an adjustment and be ready for those 55, 62 kind of drone Roach Queen attacks. And that's why Reynor says, I'm not doing it this game. This game, I'm actually just going to go up to Hive. Zest has a couple of cool timings, though, where he feels that he doesn't need Storm. He doesn't need splash damage. He can just make magic happen. Those games often are a bit different than this one. I like this. A little Void Ray hit squad with an Observer to push back a little bit of that creep spread that Reynor has been working on. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, these Void Rays are also, we got to mention, the +1 does make them significantly stronger. Reynor, he's got 2 groups of queens here, which definitely together would be able to fight this.
Oh, he's going to flank.
I love the queen flank here.
Good movement though by Zest. Really cool. Flying further away off creep, making it a bit harder for Reynor and queens on the left side to participate. The other queens have been out of energy, so Zest gets the double kill here on the queens and takes absolutely 0 damage. Once more, finds another one. Maybe we're getting a bit overeager here, Zest. That seems to be the case as he loses a Void Ray and does not get the queen kill. There is our 7-minute and 10-second hive, I believe it was. So a very quick hive, giving me some dark vibes over here.
Yeah, definitely. He's already built up a decent gas bank as well. He's getting his tier 2 ranged upgrades on the go as well. And he was very late with his roach speed, but he really committed a lot to getting his economy going and that tech going as well. He didn't need it, so I think his resource management, Reynor's that is, has been really good this game.
I gotta say, it's really cool how confident Zest is that he's like, all right, I know how games look. If you want to be aggressive, I don't think you want to be aggressive, so I'm going up to 4 bases, and I'm going to drop my fleet beacon. It's not like he just got a scout off in the main base or anything, but I think that's just the game sense of one of the best Protoss players in the world.
And how do you feel about the 3 gate into fleet beacon? Like, it's going to be a carrier transition, right, in this situation, or?
Yep. I mean, I'd be very shocked to see anything other than carriers. Maybe this one's Flux Veins, but...
Maybe +2 as well, you know, that's when you've committed this hard to Void Ray so far, but it will be the carriers coming out. Static defense has started for him, but it will be Lurkers, Spire. I mean, Reynor's getting everything, and he can afford it. He's on 90 drones at this point.
I like how active Zest is with his Void Rays, and that's obviously what you should be doing, but it's also very easy to just be shivering at home and you're being worried about what the Zerg is going to throw at you, but Zest is always out and about on the map with a little observer there to just deny some of that crazy cruise threat that Reynor has been working on. The Lynx are going to try to get some work done in the bottom side. Seems like they show up at the right moment because I don't think the static defenses are quite done yet here for Zest. Very nice timing, but here are the Void Rays to save the day.
Yeah, they arrived in the nick of time here. These charge lot, or rather zealots over here, is there even a Twilight Council on the map for these guys? I don't believe so. And yeah, so he's fully committing to the air, and I mean, we already knew that, but that feels kind of like you're placing all your eggs in one basket, but Zest, he fixes that, starts his Twilight Council up immediately.
I do think that Reynor should have a pretty decent window where he's going to have Vipers with energy, and he's going to have a good army to deal with the army of Zest, and Zest is not going to have High Templars to keep these Vipers at bay. And you can have 3 carriers all you want. If you don't have a proper way to keep these carriers safe, I'm very worried. I'd love to see Reynor gun down the cybernetics score here. I actually think that should be your prime target, and Reynor agrees. He's like, I could go for the run by, but I can also deny +2 air weapons and make Roddy really sad, but I'll forgive him.
That's a really big snipe, actually. Wow, throwing down this cyber core at that base, the 4th. I know you're just kind of like, okay, I'm doing it very quickly, but that's also a vulnerable location. I'm a bit worried for Zest in a way.
I would like to see Reynor get aggressive now, though. Get adventurous. You've got the Vipers out. Your opponent does not have any High Templars yet. He's gonna get Lurkers and Spore Crawlers. I kind of feel this is where you want those Vipers to shine. Even a Parasitic Bomb. Void Rays clump up just like Phoenixes and Mutas do, but it's actually very difficult to spread them because they don't really have the darker tone that Mutas have. I feel like Parasitic Bomb springs out a bit more. Void Rays, it often takes a little bit longer to really figure out which one is affected by the Parasitic Bomb, and I think it's almost a tragedy not to see those Vipers really get anything done while there were no Hot Templars on the battlefield.
No, yeah, and he was ahead in supply for quite some time. Obviously, he's focusing on a lot of upgrades, a lot of Spore Crawlers, so definitely making sure that he's very safe against the air fleet. Even starts his 2nd Spire as well for upgrades, so he's absolutely prepared for what Zest has. This is a nice little move out, and he does have the Hydras to deal with the Void Rays as well. This is going to be problematic. He is trying to spread Zest a little thin here.
Funny to see slow Zealots 12 minutes into the game, but Charge is finishing up, as you guys can see in the right side. Reynor is working on the adaptive talents for his Lurkers. It's going to make it a bit easier for him to get aggressive with it. Zest is getting triple Robo, triple Stargate all the way. I mean, losing that Cybercore really hurt, because imagine if Zest already had +2 air weapons. I'd definitely like his army a bit better than I currently do.
I would as well. It's like he's bought time here for the triple Robo to start pumping out a lot of Immortals. I like this because it's obviously going to be the Lurkers. There's still a huge Roach count here. I wouldn't be surprised if Reynor does start trying to, you know, eke out a few of these Roaches, just trying to get good trades. But Zest, he does get a decent scout here with his Zealots, if nothing else.
Yeah, and he keeps kind of a little bit of Roach supply stuck in the main base, and it obviously makes it a bit less likely that Reynor is going to go for it immediately when that much supply is tied up at home. Zest is queuing up the Mothership. All right, Benjamin Baker, what's the verdict on the mothership?
Or against 3 fully energy Vipers. Zest does have a really good army. I'm looking at the unit count here. He's going to have 8 Immortals soon with the 6 Carriers, the 9 Void Rays, then 2 Disruptor, 4 High Templar. Like, that's a damn high-tech Protoss army. It's going to be difficult to control for him, but it's really going to be fireworks when these two clash.
The interactions between the High Templars and the Vipers are going to be very, very important. If a fight kicks off, but Zest is able to just land a triple feedback, or at least 2 out of 3 feedbacks, because Reynor's Viper count is not incredibly high, I mean, then I definitely think that Zest can make magic happen. But if a couple of units get abducted, we see a Blinding Cloud maybe go down on these Immortals to make them a bit of derp, and then obviously Parasitic Bomb on the Void Rays. It also means that Reynor can really take a convincing victory here. I think it's all about the execution. Both armies are very powerful. It just comes down to who controls his units better. I gotta say, that is a lot of supply still tied up in roaches. I think that Reynor can maybe recycle some of that supply into making the quality of his army slightly better.
I think he has to very soon, because you have to respect this army of Zest. Like, that deals a lot of damage very quickly, and roaches, they don't gain any value whatsoever. And this is almost kind of a good thing for Reynor. Now he's going to make more more corruptors, because he has to worry about those carriers. I'm a little bit worried for Reynor, because if these armies do clash right now, but he is respecting this air army, and that is a lot of spores. How many does he actually have on this map? 46 spores and more coming.
46 spore crawlers on Beckett Industries. Well, that means you're pretty much going to have spore crawlers everywhere. But I also know Zest is a guy who's not super worried. Oh, you can... Oh, that's actually kind of funny. Well done by Zest. He's like, yeah, now you dropped the Revelation. He just killed pretty much all of them. And then I don't think we had to fight those 2 Novas, but it doesn't matter because the armies are not going to clash in the near future. Even Blink is down, plus 3 air weapons is on the way. That's obviously the one big advantage I think that Zest's army has over Reynor's army, is that the air upgrades are a little bit better. Now, Reynor does have plus 2 flyers too, but I still think it means a little more for the carriers than it does for the flyers.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many attacks from these interceptors. Reynor, he has barreled ahead on those air upgrades, though. Considering he switched to air a lot later than Zest, he's absolutely not behind. Wow, that is a huge... Well, I was going to say huge win. Wow, what? He ran... Okay, I think...
I actually am really surprised that Reynor thought he had to disengage there for a split second. Sure,
me too.
There was Prismatic Alignment, and Prismatic Alignment makes the Void Rays very powerful against Corruptors, but those Corruptors were still in overwhelming numbers. And then let's not forget about the fact that there was a Parasitic Bomb dealing a lot of damage. And I think Reynor should have just stuck around there. He could have potentially killed all the Voids.
I'm with you. I thought it was going to be an absolute smashing. Look at Zest. He's doubling down on that air control.
Wow.
4 Stargates on 5. Well, 8 Stargate, let's go.
8 Stargates. You know what's also crazy is that, like, if you have a big battle and then you just queue up like 8 carriers because you've lost all your carriers, you have so much supply tied up in production facilities for a long time, because it's not like you build a carrier and they show up 20 seconds later. No, that takes a little while. And even if you have some chronoboosts to work with, it's hard to chronoboost 8 Stargates at a time.
Oh, I like this, because this game is going to start getting to almost a split map scenario, Kev, because there's 1 base left for either of them. These lurkers getting the kills off over here. I kind of like that for Zest still. And oh, was that a carrier getting sniped? I believe
like
so.
A big explosion, so I'm gonna go with a carrier.
Yeah, 1 carrier did fall there. It's so hard for both of them to engage, because obviously when you attack, you clump up a bit. Wow, that's a lot of static defense coming down.
The second carrier gets abducted and gets picked off. Reynor is obviously in love with these traits. Zest, I wouldn't hate a Revelation. There's the Oracle indeed. A little bit late, but it is important. Like, obviously you can prevent this from happening if you are able to land those Revelations. And I gotta say, one of the best balance changes I think we've had in recent years is that Revelation doesn't last like a minute anymore. This is clearly a very powerful spell. It makes it harder for the opponent to get something done against Protoss, but Protoss play still has the option to see these units come in. So I like the fact that Revelation is still incredibly good, but you need to be very active with the Oracle to drop the Revelations non-stop.
Yeah, I do think it was a really good change as well. Reynor is hitting those really big upgrades now with the +3 air weapons, so these Corruptors can absolutely fight with the Void Rays, especially without the Prismatic Alignment. But that Observer, he gets to see that the last base on Reynor's side of the map has been taken, and it's pretty damn close for a launching point for Zest from this base, which, I mean, you don't really want to attack into that as a Zerg. But yeah, I am curious, like, who's going to be making the moves? Zest does load up a lot of High Templars into that Warp Prism, so feedbacks are available there, and also storm drops and what have you, but it's going to be tricky.
And feedback drops. It's also a real thing.
Absolutely.
The interaction between the High Templars and the Vipers truly is so important. And if Reynor can start off with all the spells out of the Vipers, he will probably win the battle. If Zest is able to start off with a couple of storms and lands a few feedbacks, then there is a good chance that this Golden Armada of Zest is just going to be way too powerful.
I liked the, you know, not messing around with changelings. I also don't like clicking on all those bad boys. He just immediately... Oh,
recall.
This could be huge, actually.
It's so risky, but it is going to happen. Here it is, the recall of the Golden Armada. Lurk is a bit out of position. Here come the Corruptors and the Vipers.
Oh, big disruptor shots go down on the Lurkers. Lots of drones falling. Reynor's supply just plummeted down 50 here. He's still not making anything. That's a lot of carriers. The High Templars are still in the warp prison. Big storm at the Time Warp, slowing down the whole army. I think Zest has kind of done this, but the Corruptors are getting nice trades here, but the storms, that's so much damage.
Yeah, no, this is an amazing fight for Zest, but I don't think a game can end here because Reynor obviously still has quite some money in the bank. I'm not sure if he has enough larva. He decides to remax on 36 Hydras, but I believe there are still a couple of storms available. So that he has to be very careful. That's a lot of Stalkers, by the way, that Zest was able to warp in behind all of this. Reynor is now maxed out once more. There are 42 Hydras on the way, but there are a lot of storms available.
Oh, I mean, look, the Hydra's going to come from every angle, right? There's like 10 morphing in here. They're all dying on spawning. So much storm, the Hydras. They can't group together. Reynor's so flustered. He's out of money here too. Zest with 6k, 3k behind all this. He's not losing units. What is the resources lost tab here? He's traded so damn well. Look at that, twice as efficient. I think Zest is walking away with this one, Kev.
Unbelievable. There are 53 Spore Crawlers on the map, but Zest with his recall was able to avoid all of these Spore Crawlers. Reynor is morphing in 10 Lurkers now, but that's not going to stop all these carriers. Maybe he feels that the current corrupt gun is still high enough. He still has 108 army supply, and let's not forget a lot of static defenses. I think Zest should really kill those production facilities. Killing the Hive is awesome, Zest. All these Lurkers are here, though, to protect these production facilities. This is going to get wild.
It certainly is. I mean, these Lurkers, they want to be able to get out of here. There's detection as well. Reynor, he's going to be feeling the pain here. That is a huge amount of Lurkers to be losing. And that just allows Zest's ground army to wreak havoc anywhere that it wants. But the thing is, Zest can get out of here technically as well, right? With the recall, at least for the air units. But he's not... Oh, that is ballsy by Zest. I think that was a mistake. And yeah, he knows it. But now the recall's actually gone for his main army.
Yep, that means that the rest of the army is actually kind of stuck because they have to go through Spore Crawlers everywhere. Reynor gets a pick-off on the... on one of the carriers, but he has still lost 16,000 resources more in this entire exchange. We kept a close eye on it before, it was pretty much dead even. And now it is 16,000 in favor of Zest, but those Spore Crawlers are all still there. Zest is like, hey, that mothership was really good, man. That was the best recall I've ever had. Let's make another one. It's hard to disagree.
Yeah, there's so much supply wrapped up in the production of Zest because he did start making like 5 carriers, 1 mothership. But we're kind of in a saving Private Ryan situation over here. Zest has to get out of there with his army. And, you know, he's not going out without losses here, but Reynor, make no mistake, he has a mountain to climb in this game. And Zest, he just kind of bullied his way out of this situation.
And let's not forget that this was arguably the most important base, because this is the base that Reynor has barely mined from. The natural and the third, I mean, that's not that big of a deal, but this base is pretty much the only fresh base there's truly left. Reynor has lost so many Lurkers that even just these Stalkers running around are very annoying. A bit indecisive there with the Corruptors. Seems like we did leave 1 or 2 Lurkers behind, so these Stalkers will get taken care of. These Corruptors are looking for more pickoffs. Reynor still sort of in this, but my goodness, is he far behind. Down 40, 50 army supply, doesn't really have too many drones anymore, and lost his entire tech.
I mean, he's in this because he's a fighter, but I'm looking at that supply, I'm looking at that bank, and I think Zest, it's really down to him to make a huge blunder here. He's got so much good stuff in production.
What I love from Zest here is that he made those carriers. They take a little while, but now he's just reinforcing with Void Rays. He's like, all right, I'm not going to give you the chance to max out. Void Rays build a lot quicker, and they can obviously reinforce very quickly with them. I think 1 or 2 observers, and go for it, Zest. This is where your army is incredibly powerful. Reynor tries to get on top of a carrier. Almost gets it, but not quite. And that's the last thing that Reynor needs at this point. The Corruptor count is currently at 24. 24 Corruptors against 7 carriers, 8 Void Rays, and let's not forget 6 High Templars. I don't think that's enough.
And the Time Warp, I love the Time Warp usage as well, by the way. Just slowing down the army, then the Disruptor hits, the Storm hits, makes it so much more difficult. Reynor's doing everything he can, sends a Lurker over to the bottom right as well, and he's sharking around, constantly trying to get damage, but he doesn't even have enough to one-shot the carriers at this point. This is so problematic for the young Italian.
That's the second time that a carrier, it feels like it's legitimately one hit away from dying. This Lurker is going to grab a couple of probe kills. And the last thing that Zest really needs to worry about is minerals at this point, as he's sitting at 7,200 minerals. Reynor does have a lair again. He drops an infestation pit. I would like to see Zest push the issue a little bit more. I know it's hard to read the situation that you're in sometimes, and you do still see all these Corruptors fly around. I almost feel that Reynor was bluffing a bit with these Corruptors, where it's like, hey man, like if I were you, I'd be worried, because I still have a lot of Corruptors. But I think deep down inside, Reynor's like, please don't A-move me, because at this point, no matter how many Spore Crawlers I have, I can't fight your army.
I'm with you as well. I think Zest has no idea how wounded Reynor is from that whole situation. Maybe he assumes he's still got a bank behind this, an army he hasn't seen yet. Was that a recall back into the top left? This is going to be a lot of damage coming in, and Reynor, this is one of his last fresh bases, and oh, that army of Zest is just so huge, so strong. Spore Crawler's trying to burrow here, but damage being done left, right, and center by Zest. Oh, Reynor, he's trying to get out Infestors here with the Gland upgrade as well, but it just can't be done.
It's actually still sick. Now, the second very good recall. I mean, the first one was amazing. It's a move we've seen a couple of times from Protoss players, but sometimes it's like, okay, now you're there, and then it doesn't really work out all that well. Well, in this case, it worked out absolutely phenomenal for Zest. He was able to land all his spells, pick up units immediately, and Reynor was just kind of forced to take a very awkward engagement. Seems like Corruptors are going to take care of this base in the bottom right side. That's nice, a tiny victory for Reynor, but he is still down roughly 40 army supply. And that army of Zest is just strong across the board, right? It's not just air units, it's also these very feisty Immortals with +3 on the ground, and obviously the High Templars that are banking all this energy.
The fact that Reynor's able to hold on here, like, I know the supplies are super lopsided, but that Spore Crawler movement that he's constantly doing, this requires so much APM and attention, and he's doing such a good job of trying to stay in this, but I don't know how he's going to do it, Kevin. What's the income tab at this point? Oh, I mean, Reynor, he's broke as a joke at this point.
Yep, there's literally zero gas. The Corruptors trying to get another cancel, but the Golden Armada is here. The Spore Crawler is not all ready yet. I don't think Zest really cares, man, because he's got such a good army on the ground. We are going to have a couple of Fungals, but Fungals alone are just not going to do it. We see a feedback or two go down. The Lurkers are getting a couple of good shots up on these Archons and Immortals.
Oh, there's nothing that Reynor can do, though. The army, the Fungal does land. He takes out the mothership, but too little, too late almost. And Zest takes the series 2-1. What a